I'm excited to have our guest today, Scott Robinson, who is the co-founder of the App Company. And I am joined by my co-host, Carlos Ponce in Mexico City. And today we have Mariel Navarro, who's joining us from Chihuahua, Mexico. Welcome to the show, Scott. Welcome to the show, guys. And we're looking forward to having this conversation. But first, let's start off by getting to know you a little bit, Scott. If you could please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go and ask about your company. So please tell us who you are and a little bit about your background.
Sure. I'm Scott Robinson. I'm in Los Angeles now, near you, but I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens, New York. And I started my career as an investment banker on Wall Street. Worked for a firm for about 10 years, and then moved to sunny California in about 1992. Actually, the day I moved into my apartment was the first day of the riots in LA. So I got a great welcome to Los Angeles. Everyone I knew in New York was calling me and worried what's going on there. In fact, it was just one thing after another. We had the Malibu fires a little while later, and then we had a couple of earthquakes, and it was pretty crazy time. But the OJ stuff, the Menendez things. But anyway, so I moved out here. I met my wife a couple of months later. We've been married for about 25 years, have 3 children. 2 are in college. One is graduated, lives here. And we're all here under the same roof right now, of course, like everyone else in the world. Well, I shouldn't quite say that. So my daughter goes to school in England. And as you might know, England was probably the latest country to kind of respond to this. So she goes to a public school in Brighton, and they didn't close till very late. So by the time they've closed, we started the ban of people coming in from England. Although citizens were exempt, that was the time, if you remember, where all the problems where people would come through Kennedy or O'Hare and they would be packed, and it seemed like a pretty dangerous thing. Anyway, long story short, it's now 2 months later. My daughter's coming home on Friday, so we'll.
Wow, must be exciting to see her. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you had a similar experience that I had as an ex-New Yorker coming to LA, which was like, what the heck is going on here? So yours was a little more intense. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about the App Company. What's the company all about? What gave birth to the idea?
Sure. So I mentioned that. So how do I transition from investment banking to apps? So when I moved out here, I always had an interest in technology. And when we had out, my son is 23, and when he was born, I was just kind of playing around on the web. This was like 96, 97. And I built a parenting website because that was the time where, there wasn't information like there is now. I mean, now you can just Google anything and find what you want. There wasn't much there. And I just felt there was a big hole in terms of learning, things that parents would want to know. There used to be a book, I assume it's still there, a couple of, big books about, I wish I knew type things. So anyway, long story short, we started a website. It was a crazy time. I mean, literally within like 2 months, we had like 500,000 people coming to the site. I had like 5 Procter & Gamble accounts advertising on it, a bunch of car companies. I mean, it was just crazy times. So I sold the company. And then the next evolution of that was apps. So Apple announced apps, and I had a buddy that was into technology and marketing, and we thought, hey, let's build apps. Our first app was, so my friend, who's a marketing guru, who's my partner, Jason Moskowitz, he knew Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut, and we decided to work with Buzz and do an app. So we contacted Apple, and Buzz actually, knew Bob Iger, because Buzz Lightyear, I mean, he probably knows everybody, but Buzz Lightyear was kind of named after Buzz Aldrin. Mm-hmm. So Bob was very nice. He introduced us to the top people at Apple, and it was a big hit. It was actually one of the first iPad apps when the iPad came out. So because we had launched the iPhone app just before the iPad came out, so they came to us. So it's called it's still out there. It's called the Buzz Aldrin Science Exploration app. So that's how we got into it. We used to develop our own apps, with Buzz. We've done other celebrity apps, a lot of sports app. We did one with Ron Artest when the Lakers were winning championships. But then we kind of transitioned into building apps for companies. So instead of building our own apps, actually our first app was for USC. We did a major app for all of their sports. So we kind of run their sports programs for fans, and that led to doing other apps for sports. At one point we had about 20 colleges. We used to run a lot of tennis tournaments. So I don't know if you've been to the BNP Paribas Open here in Palm Springs, which was canceled this year. But we've done that app. We did the Rogers Cup app for Canada, kind of the US Open of Canada. So things like that people would know.
Well, let's have a good conversation about the evolution of apps. It's obviously changed a lot in the past 10 years. A lot of the native technology has changed the landscape of how people do it. So what's the topic today, Carlos? And let's get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tulio, and thank you, Scott and Marielle, of course, for being here. So today's topic, Scott, the one you chose for today's conversation is apps for everyone, or creating native custom quality apps using an automated platform. So in other words, you're going to tell us how your company met a market challenge, right, by pivoting to a different audience and business model. So quick question, first question, Scott, for you is, why did you choose this particular topic? Let's start with that. Why did you think this was relevant for the audience?
So we felt as a company that it was a very important way to go, and we've been thinking about it for a couple of years. So specifically, we SEO really well because the name of our company is The App Company. So if you're looking for an app company, we come up usually, first on the listing. And so we get a lot of calls, and most people that call can't afford a custom app. The first question we ask is, what's your budget? And if someone says, a couple of $1,000s, we say, sorry, but you just can't build an app for that amount of money. So, but we get so many inquiries about it over the years. So we thought, what could we do to allow us to build an app that, high quality app for people that, can't afford to, more like what they would pay to build a website. So there are solutions out there. A lot of them involve, web technology in a responsive manner. So there's those types of things, but most people could see through that. I mean, you download those apps and it just doesn't really feel like an app. So our thought was, how could we take kind of the native stuff that we've built for iPhone and Android? And by the way, the other issue with a custom app is that if you build an app, there are tools now that let you build once and work on multiple platforms. But the reality is, most cases, if you build an app for the iPhone, you have to rebuild a lot of the components for the Android. So it's really kind of, I wouldn't say twice as much work, but it's another, 40% the work. So the goal was, how do we build custom components, but make it really easy? Kind of think of it as like a Wix, the ways you go to Wix or Squarespace for websites. How do we do that for apps? So we've been working on this for about 2 years. We launched it a few months ago. We have a couple of dozen clients who have already, moved to that technology. And it's working out really well. And we have some real world examples of how we've done this and really met needs during the pandemic on it, where we could never do that in the past.
So dare I ask, is it a low code app platform that you've created? Can you describe it a little bit?
Absolutely. So it's native code for both Android and iPhone. So we've taken components that we've used on custom apps over the years that we own, and we've turned it in, we've kind of widgetized it. So the basic concept is a user logs in, they register, it's low cost. They log in, and either we could design it, we have third-party agencies and developers that use our platform for their apps, so they could do it. Or if you're like someone that maybe designs a WordPress site, so you need kind of that level of knowledge, but really not coding so much. So it's more WYSIWYG. But at the end of the day, what they're really doing, if you think about it, is they're defining the menus, the colors, the options in the app, right? So it all goes on in the cloud through a JSON file. And then the app, which has all the code in it, native code, looks at that and decides how to build the app. So it's really completely custom code, but the user doesn't have to see that. That said, we do have custom hooks. So like WordPress, where you could build plugins, we also have a plugin technology to extend the platform. So you could use, within our back end, a developer theoretically, and we've done it, could design kind of the screens, the inputs, and then they could create a library, and we give them instructions to kind of add it to the code. And then think of it, it uses our code as the back end. It uses most of our common technology, and then if you have specific technology, you could add it.
So let's make this a little bit relevant for what's going on right now. Okay, imagine I am a doctor and I want to create a model where my patients use an app to stagger how often they're going to come to the office, right? Or, so I don't have an office full of people because I'm still practicing the social distancing. And I also want to have a method to be able to, again, create a model where people feel safe coming in. Is this more like a mom and pop kind of thing where I can go in and build something like that without the need of an engineer? Help me understand, help the audience understand how that applies.
So it is that. So it's just like as if they used Wix, but the reality is the better option would be for us or one of our partners to set it up for you. And it's very low cost, no programming involved. And then they could make changes. So I was telling your team, I do have and I won't spend more than a minute or two, and you could ask me questions that I could spend longer, but I think I could give you a real world example, which would make a lot of sense if I could share my screen for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an example so we were contacted literally 2 weeks ago by a local union of the United Auto Workers, so one of the largest unions in the country, and this is the local 3212. So basically, they represent about 500 workers in a Ford Motor plant in Detroit, and obviously they're not working right now. So they had an immediate need for how do you get in a kind of a community app for just the people in this union to get important, relevant information, legal information, how they could collect money, how they could get loans, safety information, things like that. So in the past, an app like what we did, it's not rocket science, but to create a custom app would take quite a bit of time. And by the way, sure, they could build a website, but when they came to us, what they specifically said is their members they all have Android or iPhones. They don't use the web or they don't use it regularly. So it was important for them to have an app. So literally what I could show you, we built in less than a day. We went back and forth with colors and content and things like that. But so on the left side is the kind of the CMS, and there's, a lot of options here, and I won't, bore you with every single one. But the basic concept is you go in, you upload the logo, and you can see the logo there. The nav bar, the height of all the colors. We have different kinds of options. So you could say I want it to be a hamburger menu style, or I want it to be a traditional like Facebook or Google down below, or Apple down below style. Everything you see all the colors. You'll notice everything is. I could literally change the color here. The app gets refreshed there. In terms of our menu design, everything you see, so we have like 15 different kind of menus. So we call this our slider menu with tabs. You can have as many tabs as you want, and any one of these can be a component. So for example, up here, you'll see at the top of the screen is a slideshow. Well, here are the images, right? And we say, how many seconds we want that to be. And that's what you're seeing going on. We then just drag tabs under it, and we say, these are the 3 tabs. And we say COVID-19 has 2 tabs under it. So if you see, I click here, there you go. And then down here, you could see this is a video component. So I click, videos, and, so we have different kinds of videos. This is a YouTube playlist. So literally we just go over here. Did something happen?
Yeah, you're back. We lost you for a second.
Yes, I'm going through this fast, but feel free to ask me questions. But what I'm saying is just all dragging. So let me just show you.
No, this is great. I mean, it looks similar to the WordPress.org setup, right? Where you don't have to be a developer to build your own thing.
Exactly, but it's a native app. It looks great. So like for example, so this welcome, I'll literally hide it right now. So if I hide that welcome screen, the app's going to refresh. Now I'm showing you what we call a preview app. So if it's live, which it is, this wouldn't happen. The client would have to hit push live here. But because I'm on the preview app, any change I make, you see. So notice the way welcome went away. Right now, I'll turn it back on. So
question. This becomes native on the browser, right? It's not actually apps that end up in the store, or they're actually apps that end up in the store.
No, it's truly native. So essentially what happens is, so let me show you here. So the client or us define the splash screens, the icon, the logos. They define all the information that will go on the store, right? So it's all here. And then essentially what happens is we, as part of our service fee, they have to have their own account because Apple and Google require, we can't put it under our brand, but they create an account and we just push it live. Their native. This is actually native code. So everything I'm doing here is kind of the brains of it. We're really creating, in the cloud, all the settings. It tells us the colors, the menus, what components, and then we compile it together and we load it just like at any other, we load the APK and we load the Apple code. So it's all native. This is not a web app. It's native code.
Native code. Okay, and so
it reminds me of AirKit, Julio. I don't know if you remember that. AirKit.
Well, AirKit was more low code, where it automatically generate code. You still have to be somewhat of an engineer. This is more like a WordPress, managed WordPress. And if I heard correctly, Scott, you also have on the back end of this, perhaps freelancers or vetted developers that could help with design or even help build it out for someone who might get stuck or maybe doesn't want to do the whole thing themselves. Is that right?
So we have two kinds.
How does that come into play? Let's say I have an idea and I want the bulk of it done by someone, but I can do some modifications and things like that myself. Is that a possibility as well?
Yeah. So we have two kinds of. So we have one model, which the truth is, I wouldn't say anyone without any like an end user client with no technical training. It's probably all of our clients do manage what we're doing, but we set it up, and it's not very expensive. I mean, it's anywhere. I mean, the price point, the setup, depending on how much we are asked to do, is anywhere from say $1,000 to $3,000. So we'll set it up, but we also, and then it's roughly, depending on the volume, about $150 a month. But
all right, so someone has been thinking about building an app and has gone to an applications company, an engineering company. And with a $2,000 budget in the past, they've been told, sorry, that's, we don't work with that. Now they can go here. You guys can help them set it up and they can maintain it on their own. It's kind of like what I did with my own blog. I had someone set it up and now I maintain it myself. I mean, that's just brilliant. And who are you targeting predominantly? Who's your main customer base? I know we talked about mom and pop. Is there a particular vertical that seems to be getting more traction than others?
But just to directly answer your question, so that's one model is we'll do it, but we also work with both kind of agencies / designers. So not coders, but people that know CSS and could design websites. So we work with that group, and then we also work with developers. So and we kind of white label the product, and they could do it. They could certainly say this is the App Company platform, but at the end of the day, it's a native app, so they could do what they want to do, and they could so if it's the designer, where we allow you to add CS. So say you want to bring in a website, because we have different. If I want to add a component, I say I want to add widgets, right? So one of the things you could do is you could do a web page, but you could then add custom CSS. So what a lot of clients will do, in this example, watch this. So if I say UAW blog, we have a native content manager, but if you don't want to add your posts in our content manager, you could point to a website. So this is a website, but we've put CSS in here to basically not display the headers, the footers, the sidebars. So dynamically, it'll just reformat the web page. So like a designer could do that pretty easily. And then if you're a coder, we have ways of adding features through custom, JavaScript code. So it's just, depends. We have a lot of features. We don't do every single thing possible. We wish we could, but no one can. So if we haven't thought of something, we'll either commission a plugin and then add it to the platform, or a developer is free to do their own thing.
I know some of you guys have additional question. I have just one before I let Mariel and Carlos jump in. Is this an open source? Are you contributing back to open source as well, or is it a closed garden right now?
So right now it's closed. It's new, but at some point there's certainly a thought to do that.
I like it.
I mean, in the ideal world, I mean, when we look at where we want to be in a couple of years, and we would love to be like a WordPress, right, where we have a lot of our code is open source. We have a whole community. Developers could build both free and paid plugins for, I mentioned we have a whole plugin module. So it's perfect if, a developer has a client that needs something, but if we'd love to have like a marketplace where a developer could create a map app, a calendar, map plugin, a calendar plugin, whatever it happens to be, and make it available to all of our users for a fee.
I find that interesting. A lot of times for internal use, organization will not opt to do an app because it's, again, too cost prohibitive, too big of a project. But with something like this, I could essentially create all kinds of internal application if I'm a large enough company where I may have certain movements that I'm behind, or charity efforts, or volunteering, anything that I could build to manage a community. I could essentially do that. Are you getting any traction from large companies that want to do internal apps, or is it predominantly, where's your business heading right now? What's the what kind of traction are you getting? Who's requesting this mostly?
So at this point, most of our business has come from not us going out to get it, but that is definitely the plan. That was the plan now, but our plan was kind of disrupted. So we had really just started that when the pandemic started. So people really aren't super focused all the time on this stuff. So most of our business comes from either existing clients, we switch them over because it's just much easier to maintain, or people contacting us and us, letting them know about the platform and then, jumping on it. So we have all kinds of, so we have restaurants, it's great for that. Service businesses, doctors, dentists, spas, anything with information. It's a natural if it's like an information type of app. So like this example with the union, we didn't even think about unions, right? And they came to us. This is one of the largest unions in the country. And they, it's a natural, right? It's just an easy way to quickly get it out and to keep people abreast of information. So there really isn't a limit. Does it do every single thing, anyone could do? Of course not. So that's why we tried to make it extendable so we could add custom features. So we do have some real big clients. So I mentioned to you earlier that for about 8 to 10 years, we've been doing the USC Game Day app, which has, well over 1 million people that use it. We converted them to this platform. And, one of the reasons, which I didn't mention, is that when people build an app, they think they're done. So, a custom app is expensive. It could be a low of $15,000. Most of them are $30,000 to $50,000 or more, right? And people think they built it, it's done. Well, it's not done. Why is that? Because Apple and Google and all the Android device makers are constantly changing, right? So they're constantly coming out with new operating systems, new devices. The apps need to change. Google and the frameworks that all these apps use frameworks. They use Firebase and all kinds of things, right? It's always changing. So our clients have to do more custom stuff, right? So they build the app and then we get the app starts crashing or it doesn't look good on a device. And they're like, what's going on? We're like, well, we're happy to fix it, but it's not free. Well, the beauty of this is it's not free, but there's a SaaS, revenue, there's a fast SaaS monthly fee, but part of that includes complete updates. So anytime something is new, we change it. So an example, Apple, we're all used to social login, right? So you have, login with Google, login with Facebook. Well, Apple in the fall launched login with Apple. And Apple had, at the time, it was a soft requirement. They, encourage people to use it. But this starting in, I think, April of this year, they basically said, if you use Google or Facebook or Twitter social login, you have to use our social login. And it's not rocket science, but it's effort. And, so clients would not have gotten their apps approved without adding that. So the beauty of the platform is anything that happens, we're up to speed on it. It gets changed.
Right. I have
Marielle?
a question. Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually,
Go ahead, Marielle.
Got my attention the fact that when the main platforms are maybe Apple and Android. I know that you probably heard about this thing happening with Huawei and Android. Are you guys planning on building native apps for the new Huawei operating system? I think it's called Harmony OS, something like that. Are you seeing this happening in the future?
So we haven't seen the demand for it, but I would say that it's certainly, something, that and multiple other platforms also we've thought about. Certainly it's on, it's on the table and it's something we would consider. But the beauty of this platform is that when we do that, it would be available for our other clients. So it's certainly something we've thought about.
Yeah, probably once they.
Well, we need I think we wait usually. I mean, it's good to anticipate demand to some extent, but we just haven't been seeing it at this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, early on, I mean, I'm going to date myself because we've been doing apps for so long, but there was one point when, Windows phones were, Microsoft was trying hard. And no one had ever asked us about it. I mean, it was, I wouldn't say it was popular, but it was going on. But it's a funny story. The only time we ever even heard about it was we had a high level meeting with the Seahawks about doing an app, because we had been doing a lot of these football apps. And the first thing that we were told was, we have to have a Windows version. Their former owner, or God bless him, he's passed away. Was the Microsoft person. So anything they did had to also work with Windows. But in all the hundreds or thousands of app meetings I've ever had, that was the only time we were even asked about Windows.
Yeah, I think Windows always didn't make it so good as other operating systems. Out of the tech side, do you guys get involved on other stuff, like, for example, marketing?
So do we market? Do we do marketing? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like, do you help customers out of the
Absolutely.
tech side?
Yeah, so through the app company itself, we'll certainly work with companies when we build an app. We do have a service where we'll help them to market the app. So we've done that a lot. I also I wear, on my resume, I believe it shows that I have another hat. I work with a company, I'm a partner, called New Offerings, and we're a full digital agency. So we do websites. We both do SEO and pay-per-click and Facebook and social media, and I also advise some pretty big clients on that. So I'll work with the CMO, and we'll manage, the agency that they use.
Well, Scott, we're coming up on time, but I want to just see if I've made the right assessment here or come to the right conclusion. If you are a small business, you don't have an IT staff, you don't have an engineer on staff, but you want to do something that's creative and valuable, and you want to differentiate yourself, but you got enough of a customer base where it makes sense to have your own app. This is the way to go. It seems like a no-brainer to me. You go here, you guys can build it, they can manage it themselves, they can continuously stay up to date with the latest technology. It's part of the model, the maintenance model, if you will, and the monthly cost. And if you're a larger company and you want to experiment with things, again, there's an opportunity here. I guess anybody could use this, even if you're a large company. I wouldn't see why not. But that's the sweet spot. The sweet market is those companies that are looking for something fast, that don't have their own engineering teams. Is that a fair assessment, or have I missed something?
Even if they have their team, I guess what I would say is certainly it doesn't do everything, right? So if you want an Uber app that's very custom, sure, it's probably better off building it from scratch. But realize that probably 90% of apps are really not that, right? They're similar in information. So it does a lot of things. It's cost. There's a lot less cost. It's also time to market. I like to use the house analogy, right? If you want to remodel your house, yeah, people do it and everyone does it, but it takes forever and it creates a lot of headaches, and husbands and wives get divorced, right? It's not a happy situation. In this case, it's super streamlined. You can see instantly, as I showed you, changes you make. You could experiment. It's actually a great even if you were going to build an app, it's a nice prototyping tool. I mean, I know there are these mock-up tools, but this really creates native code that you could really see what your final product might be. So instead
of building PowerPoints, you actually could build a real prototype as your design firm. I like that thinking a lot. Well, Scott, we're up on time. It's been a pleasure to have you here. We wish you a lot of success. I think there's opportunities for a lot of companies, especially those a little bit behind in their digitization, with everybody working from home and things have changed. Definitely, this is a kind of a leg up opportunity to leverage this platform. For those of you watching, it's the App Company. We will make sure we put the links on the Dojo Live page. And again, thanks for being with us, Scott. What do we got coming up tomorrow, Carlos?
Tomorrow we're going to be speaking at 1:00 p.m. with Jesse Fuel from from Fuel Innovation, and the topic is going to be untapped agility, or 7 leadership moves to transform your transformation. So I look forward to that as well, right here on Dojo Live at 1 p.m. Pacific.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks again, Scott, for being with us.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
having me.
rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Just
you.
stay with us.
Be safe.